Well, good day, everybody. This is Joe Van Cleve, and welcome to the results from Typing Assignment number 14, which was on the subject of the underdog. And as you may recall, the assignment was to write either about a literal underdog or figuratively, either true to life, fiction, poetry, whatever. It's very open to interpretation, and we had pretty good participation this time, and I look forward to reviewing your results. I really enjoyed David Randall's piece, The Underdog, and this was such a funny piece to me. Funny in the sense that the underdog is a wealthy, very successful businessman. He has it made in life. His life's position was groomed for him from the beginning. He had his life all planned out to marry the perfect woman and to have the perfect family and to manage the enormous wealth of his family, but he always considered himself to be the underdog, which is an interesting concept, that it's often a mental state, not a state of reality. But the funny part about it is he finds his solace in his secret life as a typewriter collector and a writer. And he ends up the story by submitting his novel to various publishing houses anonymously to get published, to secretly break away from the chains of the burden of his existence, which many of us, of course, might envy. But I thought that was very imaginative, David. I really enjoyed that. And that was written on a Smith Corona Sterling, a 1946 Smith Corona Sterling. Well done, David. Andrew Nichols' piece was titled Tommy Galaxy, and it was written on a 1950s Hermes baby. And this was a really fun story. This is about a 12-year-old kid named Tommy who's playing in a video arcade game contest. And he's matched up with his foe, Ed Imperial Empire. They all have these spacey kind of nicknames. But anyway, he's in a contest, a final contest, and when he wins, or if he wins, he will get a kiss from his girlfriend, and that's what's motivating him. It was a wonderful story, and it really reminds me of the scenes from the early part of the movie Tron, the original Tron, way back in the early 80s, maybe, when it came out, but where that movie took place in a video arcade. This kind of reminded me of that very much. And, of course, a little bit of Star Wars in there, at least in the way that the mothership has to be destroyed. But I really enjoyed that. And we don't really know what happens. We can assume that Tommy might win and gets the kiss from his girlfriend. But that was a fun story. Thank you very much. Diane Cox's piece, titled To the Moon and Back, was written on a Hermes 3000, a mint green Hermes 3000, and her piece is a wonderful essay and rumination on the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union. And there are some personal aspects of this story. She took some sculpture classes back in the 1980s, and during those classes met Apollo 12 astronaut Alan Bean. And it was a very interesting overall essay where she links together the one of the stories that Tom Hanks wrote in his recent book Uncommon Type, pertaining to a green Royal desktop typewriter that was used to type out a receipt for the command module in the story, ordering a command module, and to NASA's history, Mr. Bean's involvement in the space program, to Wernher von Braun and Operation Paperclip and all the German rocket scientists and engineers who came to the United States after World War II to work on the space program, and her own personal connection with her father, having worked as a machinist for a subcontracting company that made scientific instruments part of the lunar moon buggies. So some of her father's work is still on the moon as we speak. Very cool. And of course, she also mentions the recent film Hidden Figures, involving the Katherine Johnson, the black female mathematician who made a major contribution to the space program. And just a wonderful essay that I can personally relate to a lot, because I am old enough to have remembered watching the moon landings live on my dad's old Curtis Mathis console television back in the late 1960s, staying up late at night, early in the morning, watching the Apollo 11 thing. But it was a wonderful essay, Diana. Brought back a lot of memories, and it also makes me think how much we look forward to seeing a renewed space program here in the United States. And a brief story. The second paragraph in your essay, where you talk about, in Tom Hanks's story, Alan Bean Plus 4, where they use a typewriter to order a command module. That reminds me that when I was in the Navy, one of the guys in our workshop on the ship was going through the list of part numbers available on the Naval Supply Catalog, and he found a part number for a destroyer, a ship, an entire ship, and he ordered it. He ordered an entire ship. And the order went up through the chain of command until it reached a certain level where some officer looked at the price of it like, I don't know, $5 or $10 million, says, "What the hell is this?" But it was funny. We almost ordered our own ship. Anyway, I loved your story, Diane. Thank you very much. Brian Okabayashi has a wonderful essay that he wrote on his 1947 Smith Corona Silent. What a great machine that is, which he fully restored, by the way. He's a relative newcomer to the typosphere and a newcomer to our typing assignments. Welcome, Brian. I really liked his essay. It was a wonderful essay on the value of the underdog and how many of us are underdogs. And even though it seems it's popular to think of heroes as being those who succeed and do great things, but in fact, it's often the underdog who is really most appreciated. And he says in his essay, there is much satisfaction to be had in seeing the underdog succeed when all odds are stacked against him. And that is so true. So many times, as he says, in film and literature and going back thousands of years, in fact, underdogs have played a role in stories that we love to tell to each other. And in our own lives, the value of underdogs is very much appreciated. You can think of all the great heroes of our culture and society, many of whom were indeed true underdogs, but they succeeded where they were not expected to. And I really hope that, Brian, you have a great experience with your new typewriter and in the process of creating with these machines and in the community of typewriter adepts that we enjoy here. Thank you very much. Great job. Paul Hopper's piece, Cursive Writing the Underdog, really hit home with me. He has this wonderful essay which he wrote on a Brother Charger 11. This wonderful piece is a real great essay about the value of cursive writing. His own personal experience was he struggled with cursive writing in elementary school. His father essentially gave him an out and encouraged him to learn to print. You don't really have to cursive write. But he only found out later in life as his cursive writing got worse and worse, as mine did also, that there was a great value in relearning cursive writing, which he has been in the process of doing through tutorials and resurrecting an old fountain pen, which I can definitely relate to. Thank you very much. And Paul, I can also relate to your cursive writing experience in that if you recall the previous video I made, Typewriter Video Series episode 97, I believe, I talk about my little arthritic thumb condition that I just got diagnosed recently in my writing hand, which is limiting my ability to do long writing sessions with it. But really, my cursive writing went downhill in high school when I started doing a lot of note-taking, and I do essentially a fast, hurried kind of printing. Sometimes it's a slightly italic, but it's mainly a printing thing, and that's kind of the way I note-take. I really have to sit down and think about each letter when I cursively write, and it's a very slow, almost like a calligraphic kind of experience when I cursively write neat. But I definitely can appreciate your desire to relearn cursive writing, and it's great to see younger people getting the interest in older cultural artifacts like cursive writing. I hope it continues to take off better in the future and it gets restored in our culture. And thank you very much, Paul. That was a great piece. David Corneli wrote his piece called Voyage of the Underdogs on a 1970s era Sears Manual 1 typewriter. And his piece is another space-themed piece, which is interesting. It's about the Voyagers 1 and 2 spacecraft, which were launched in 1977 to explore the solar system. And as of this writing, or this video, the Voyager 1 is the furthest human object that's ever traveled out away from our home planet. And it's an interesting essay he gives how these little spacecraft weren't expected to do much other than maybe, with luck, reach Jupiter or Saturn, one of those planets, but they've done so much more. And it was due to the dedication and the willingness of the NASA organization, the engineers and scientists, and I guess the Congress and the government who funded the program, that they have been kept alive, and those people have been working on this mission for decades, almost their entire career, with periodic moments of excitement as the probes near some astronomical object, and they get to awaken them and hopefully get data to and from them. So very interesting. And also like the connection that you wrote about your Sears Manual 1 typewriter, this typewriter that's kind of beat up, less than perfect shape, built in the same era as the Voyagers were, and yet it continues its mission going forth, writing new things, discovering new thoughts. And I really appreciate that. I really think it's interesting how these machines, like the ones built for Sears, have this legacy of their own. I think about, just on a personal level, there used to be an old Sears store just within a mile of my house, and it's closed down and gone now. And I think about the decline of that whole chain. But back in the day, they had a lot of custom branded items that they sold, appliances and stuff, and typewriters are one of them, and they had some pretty good ones. Well, thank you very much, David. I enjoyed your piece. I enjoyed Diane Mayer's piece. It was written on a 1913 Royal 5. I might be the oldest machine in this month's episode. But her piece is titled The Underdog, and she really has an interesting essay here. She links together, first of all, the old American cartoon television series called Underdog, which I loved as a kid, and it links that to the Hogan's Heroes TV series, which another series I really loved, those American POWs who were the underdogs, but really they were, in the series at least, they had won over their captors. And finally, she finishes her essay with the LA Kings professional hockey team and their 2011-2012 winning season, where they came essentially from not anyone expecting them to do anything, losing their coach, a change of coach early in the season, to winning the Stanley Cup that season and the next season. So it's a great essay, and it reminds me of how wonderful it is when you have underdogs that come from behind. Everybody loves those kind of stories. I was even reminded recently with the recent Winter Olympics that just concluded from South Korea. We were reminded on American television about the 1980 American hockey team and their underdog winning the gold medal over the Soviet Union team. So anyways, sports indeed, that is the life of sports. There is a lot of underdogs, and that's one of the reasons we love it. Thank you very much. And Kevin Kittles' piece was written on a 1958 Remington Quiet Rider 11, and I really enjoyed Kevin's piece. This was very fun. It's called It's Not Yours. And so Kevin's character in this story is a fledgling writer, has been dreaming about starting writing his great American novel, but he's can't write the story because he has a non-disclosure agreement with his Acme Express employer, which says that he has to wait until 2 years after termination of his employment before he can write anything that he has the right to keep. And so the 2-year point is up. He decides, all right, I'm set. I'm going to start writing. And so he gets himself his computer set up. He gets a Linux machine with a mechanical keyboard and this Rivet Writer software, which is supposed to be non-distractive software, by the way, but it's full of all kinds of features, which rings alarm bells, right? But so he starts reading the terms of service of this Rivet Writer software and comes to find out that anything written for commercial purposes on this software is owned, the rights to it are owned by Rivet Writer. And so he throws a fit and finds out, oh no, I can't use this setup to write my great American novel. And his wife says, well, why don't you calm down? Why don't you put slipcovers on the new pillows? And while he's putting the slipcovers on, he reads the tag on the pillows, which says, any thoughts coming to you while you're resting on these pillows is the right of the pillow manufacturer. Oh, that was funny. There's a lot of truth in that story, that humorous story about the rights of authors and creators, and it does ring true. And I would say for the author, or for the character, I should say, in that story, his solution, of course, is a manual typewriter. Great job, Kevin. I always enjoy your pieces. They're so imaginative. Well, as usual, I was late to the party. We thought for several days. I asked my wife if she could think of a story to write for this month's assignment, and she struggled with it, and I was busy with stuff and didn't really have any stories floating around in my head. So this morning, as I was eating my scrambled eggs and green chili, which by the way is great, breakfast, I took my Alpha Smart Neo, sat it down in front of me, and started pecking out a story off the top of my head. And the story is called The Overcats, which are the opposite of the underdogs. And this is just an imaginative story about this world where the cats are ruling over the dogs, and the dogs have this insurgency, and they finally win it over the cats. And in the end, it says, and to this day, as the mutts enjoy being served by their humans, there is enmity between them and the remaining free-range felines who are left to hunt rodents or sit on warm windowsills in the sun, purring and dreaming of their long-lost glory. Ah, the eternal fight between the cats and the dogs. Anyways, I enjoyed this typing assignment. It was a lot of fun, and you guys had great results. You know, one of the main purposes of this series has been to encourage us typewriter collectors and owners to use our machines for their intended purpose, creative writing. And I would also like to mention, along with this series that is open for anyone to participate who has a typewriter, manual or electric, along with that, I would like to encourage you, if you're interested, to go over to Facebook. There is a typewriter poetry and typecasting cafe group. I have not actually joined, by the way, but I encourage you guys to go there and just visit it if you want, and to read through that. They have daily and weekly assignments. There's a lot of regular contributors who are daily putting out works, on typewritten works on paper. And so it is great to see a larger community of adepts who are using typewriters for creative purposes. And that is my end objective, to see that this happens more and more. Well, that is it for this month. If you guys have any interesting requests for a typing assignment, leave a comment down below and I'll honor your request. I don't have yet an idea for the next assignment. Usually I question my wife about it at the dinner table or something, unless I happen to think of something really inspiring off the top of my head. But give me a week or so. Usually it takes me a few days to come up with a good idea. So until then, if you guys happen to have an idea of your own, like I say, pop it in a comment down below. But until next time, great job. Stay creating, keep typing, and you guys have yourselves a great day.